Well, in the 90-minute episode, we finally get to see just what Negan's control in the group really means and how it has affected everyone and what those changes mean for the group overall. Hey guys, time for The Walking Dead Season 7, Episode 4 service, and I was definitely really looking forward to this episode. You guys know I've really been enjoying this season, but for a couple of reasons. One, because I knew this was going to be the episode where Negan was going to come back, and we were going to see the way that everything turned out. I was a little bit scared, though, because of the fact of, how hard the last episode was to watch. I really was thinking we were going to get in that dark territory again, and while we did, and yes, this episode was long, this was definitely more of, I'd say, less of an episode, showing, oh, this is really, what Negan's going to do, and showing people get killed, and more of an episode showing, the hold that he has against the group, what this has done to everyone, and really what all of this means. Did this episode really need to be 90 minutes? No, I don't really think so, but I think for the most part, it worked out really well. I think this was a really good episode. I definitely really did enjoy it. I will admit that this episode was a bit slower than others, but I still really enjoy it. I thought overall this was a really well done episode, and let's just get into it because there were some genuinely great things about this episode that I really did enjoy, so let's just get right into it. What I like about this episode the most is that while it did focus on Negan, most of its focus was painted on all of our characters, and it really gave them a lot of time to shine. We got to see Rick and Michonne. They're laying in bed. This reminds us that these two are still a couple. It's clear that Michonne has a lot weighing on her mind. She gets up. She walks in the kitchen after getting dressed. Kind of a nice little scene just showing how Michonne goes about her day and how this has really affected her. Her sword is on her back. She looks at the mantle where it used to hang. She gets a rifle out of the fireplace and puts it into a duffel bag and leaves. Rick watches her walk with the door, and she's walking through an open field. She approaches a broken down truck, and she climbs on top with the rifle, looks around, basically because she's terrified that something could happen at any point. Now that what's happened to Glenn and Abraham, she's very worried that, she doesn't know who's going to be next, so she's trying to get ready at any second. Rick walks into another room. He picks up Judith, who actually looks a bit older, we see, which was weird to see Judith older, but as we know, there has been quite a bit of a time jump. So Eugene is sitting by the gate playing with a radio. Spencer and Rosita pull up in a car, asking him to open the gate. They ask Eugene to join them on a run for Negan supplies, and we actually got to see them do stuff in this episode, and that's something that I was very surprised about. Characters like Eugene, Rosita, Spencer, especially Spencer, have had zero to nothing to do in this entire show, and finally they're actually giving them stuff to do, which I like seeing. But he says he's working a radio for them, and all of a sudden we see trucks and motorcycles are heard outside the gate. Whistling begins. Negan bangs on the entrance immediately, saying, little pig, let me in." So Spencer opens the blinds, and he asks who Negan is. Rick appears. He stares the villain down. Negan greets Rick, and with a smile on his face, and just that scene in general. Jeffrey Dean Morgan was just so chilling here. Rick says that Negan's early. He opens the gate. Negan says he misses Rick, and then he knocks at a walker with Lucille. He then tells a horde of saviors it's time to get started, and Daryl is standing with the saviors. He's looking pretty beaten. Negan says that Rick should be grateful for his service after he was almost turned away by Spencer. He still killed a walker for them. He hands Rick Lucille's. He enters Alexandria saying, "Hold this," and it's just the perfect way to show that Negan is in full control. Negan is the one that they need to bow down to, and I think it just perfectly shows where this show is going to go. So overall, really great first scene, and I think it perfectly sets us up for the rest of the episode. Now, there are some really great scenes between Rick and Negan in this episode, and I think that first scene was a very good example of that, but we see Negan. He says he loves looking at Alexandria, calling it an embarrassment of riches, and Rick talks to Daryl, but Negan ends up shutting him down. He says that Daryl's a help and Rick is not to look at or to talk to him. He then taunts Rosita, remembering her from the lineup. Negan says that there's a lot of suspense there, and instead of taking half of the supplies, Negan says that he decides what they take. He sends the men out to search the houses and take what they can. I mean, it's all up to Negan. Everything that they do is Negan's decision, and, anyone that doesn't want to bow down to him, well, they're just going to die. That's just how it works. And he asks Rick if he's going to show him around. Dwight asks Rosita where she's going with Spencer. And again, I like this side of Rick in this episode. This isn't Rick being a pussy. That's not what this is. This is Rick realizing that he has no choice but to listen to Negan. If he wants to keep things smooth sailing, and if he wants to keep people alive, he needs to do what he can to respect Negan, even if he doesn't really agree with what he's doing, which is very hard to watch, let me just say. And I think it makes the show more terrifying than ever. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm terrified watching this show, but the show definitely is a bit more chilling with someone like Negan around. That's something I think this season's done really well. We see Dwight, he asks Rosita where she's going with Spencer. He says he doesn't care. He takes her gun, then asks Spencer for his. Dwight opens the car, takes the rest of the weapons from inside, and he says that now that's all settled, he's got a job for them. He says he's going to go get Daryl's bike, and Dwight takes Rosita's hat off her head before finally allowing her to leave. Then he reaches into the car, he takes the canteen, he pours the water out, he says not to take too long. Rosita starts the car, and she drives away. So Michonne's still sitting on the car. She stands as she sees something coming. A walker appears over the ridge. She takes aim. She misses the first shot, and she actually misses the second shot. She fires 6 or 7 shots before giving up and just killing the walker with her sword. And it's just showing that things really are just really crazy right now, and that it's hard for her to even kill a walker. That's how distracted she is. The fact she can't kill a walker, I thought was crazy to see. So she walks through the woods. She sees a dead deer lying on the ground. She killed it with one of her missed shots, and 2 saviors are then taking a chair out of a house as Negan continues to try and convince Rick that they are reasonable. He then opens a soda from the house, takes one drink, and throws it down. Yeah, definitely very reasonable for him to just take the drink and everything, but Negan's then given a video camera. He sees the video that the group recorded when they first arrived in Alexandria, and this was a really well done scene. A lot of this episode actually is showing how far this group has come, specifically Rick. Rick has changed so much, with his non-chiseled look and his shorter hair, and Negan says he wouldn't have messed with Rick, but he isn't that guy anymore. Rick simply, isn't as intimidating as he used to be, and that's mainly because Rick is now more acclimated to the world. Things have gone Rick's way. He's just not as scary, and that's something that Negan really does notice here, is that he's not really scared of Rick now. So Negan asks how Maggie's doing. He warns Rick about how he's looking at Negan, and Negan talks about having sex with widows and that he would love to see her. Just really horrible stuff overall. And we see Father Gabriel then appears, who I can't remember the last time we saw Father Gabriel, but it was cool to see him in this episode. It's been a long time, and Negan says that he is creepy as shit. Gabriel introduces himself, takes Negan to a grave. He hints that Maggie didn't survive, and Negan says he didn't want to do it, but Daryl forced his hand. He was going to take Maggie home with him, and you're thinking, holy shit, is Maggie dead? I really hope they didn't kill off Maggie. I don't think they did. We saw her in the promo for next week's episode, so I'm assuming that Maggie's still alive. I don't think that she's actually dead. I think this is just something that Negan wants them to think, but a gunshot's heard in the background, gets angry, and Carl's then pointing a gun at a savior, saying that he will shoot if the man doesn't put the medicine down. He tells Negan to leave before he learns how dangerous they all are. Rick tells his son to put the gun down, but Negan chastises him, and Negan says he likes Carl, so he doesn't want to hurt him. As we know, he wants to kind of use Carl to his advantage, and he says half is what he says it is, and he asks Carl if he wants to prove himself again. Carl lowers the gun. Negan says it reminds him that Rick has a ton of guns and that he can't allow that. He says they're all his now, and basically he's forced to give the guns to him. But Olivia opens the garage door for Negan and the others. She says the armory's inside, and Negan asks if she's in charge here. She leads the saviors to the guns. Negan talks to Rick. He points out that he isn't taking any of their food. If they starve to death, he doesn't get anything. He doesn't care. If they don't get food, then they're going to starve to death. Again, to them, they are his slaves. And he demands that Rick thank him for his gratitude. He asks Rick if he's cooperating. He wants to know if they're really going to find all the guns or if Rick has any hidden. And Rick says they're all in there to the best of his knowledge. And obviously, we don't know if that's actually true. But Rosita then stops the car near the train tracks as they approach a broken down van. She and Spencer continue on foot. This is actually where Denise was killed, we find out, which I thought that was very interesting. And that, again, was because of Negan. She died because of Negan. And Spencer then goes to the woods, uncovers Daryl's bike. He tells Rosita it's over, that Rick got to the broken place. He says it might have been different had Rick thought things through. He hints that Abraham would be alive if it weren't for Rick. She takes off into the woods. He begins to load the motorcycle. And yeah, this is partially Rick's fault, but really this is Daryl's fault. I mean, I said it beforehand. That scene with Daryl, Abraham, and Sasha, when they killed that one guy in that scene in the second half of season 6, that is the moment that we knew that Negan was going to get his revenge. So this really was not Rick's fault. This very much was Daryl and Abraham and Sasha's fault. Abraham already atoned for his sins. He's dead. Sasha's still out there, and Daryl's still out there. So those are people who still are going to pay. It's not exactly Rick's fault, and I get why Spencer's blaming him, but this to me just seemed like they gave Spencer something to do, and they didn't really explore this conflict, I think, as well as they could. They could have done a little bit more with it, but this really did not work as well as I think it should. But Negan applauds a partnership with Alexandria. He checks out one of the guns that Rick stole from his people. He shoots the gun near Rick, and he says that Lucille is actually getting jealous, we see. So a female savior then says that they're short according to Olivia's count. 2 guns are missing, and is Rick lying, or does Olivia suck at her job? We don't really know. Negan asks if she knows where they are. Negan says he's disappointed in Rick, and he can't have someone not being on board. Negan says he doesn't like killing women, and he's gonna have to work this out. He gives this whole monologue about, oh, I'm willing to let any man die, but women I'm just not gonna do. It seems that he either looks at women as innocent victims or sex slaves is kind of how he sees it, which is disgusting, but he says that this was her job, and she screwed up. He says keeping track of guns is life and death, and I don't think we've really seen Olivia that much before. I know she's been there, but she just hasn't really been that substantial part of a show, and I thought it was kind of cool. They gave her something of substance to do, but Rick is standing in the church talking to all the people. We get this scene where he said he thought about hiding guns in the back, but what if Negan found out? People would die. Lucille's in the church with Rick, and he says hiding guns isn't the answer, but they need to give the guns over to Negan. He asks who has the 2 guns. Someone knows where they are. If they don't turn them over, Olivia will die. And he makes it very clear that, he's not in charge anymore. Scott stands, asks why they care. Rick asks if he has them. Scott says he wishes he did. Rick says that none of them was there. They want to live in peace. Eric asks what happens if they do happen to find the guns, and Rick says he's not in charge anymore. Negan is, and it's really not. He doesn't make that decision. Negan makes the decision. If Negan wants the guns, they got to give the guns to Negan, and Rick very firmly understands that. They ask who has the guns. Eugene looks around, and he says that everyone isn't there. So Rosita's walking in the woods. She's approaching a couple of walkers. Spencer calls her name. The walkers turn back towards her. She hides behind a tree and systematically kills all of them. And you can clearly tell this is obviously in vengeance for Abraham. Like, she's very upset what happened with Abraham. Even though those 2 weren't together, she very much cared for him, and you definitely see that here, which I like seeing. And you understand why she's taking this vengeance out, in the way she is. And it really makes Rosita the badass that I've always wanted her to be. Again, I feel like Rosita's been a very, very underused character, and this really is what I want to see from Rosita from the beginning. It's just hardcore, badass killing. I think definitely really good stuff with her in this episode, but Spencer catches up after they are all dead. She took a gun off of a walker, saying that Dwight and Negan will end up taking all their guns. She tells Spencer this is not their life. He walks away. Where the hell is Aaron, by the way? I have no idea. I didn't think that I thought he survived. I don't know why he's not in this episode. It was kind of weird not to see him, but Negan sits out in the backyard with Olivia. Rick looks at him. Then he starts tearing apart his house, looking for the guns. Gabriel shows up, says he still can't find the guns, but he knows it's going to work out, that we'll find a way to beat this, but Rick disagrees. Gabriel says that Rick is his friend. He has faith in him. He asks about Michonne, and Rick says she doesn't have anything. And it was a pretty good scene where Gabriel says that he was his friend, and that's not how it used to be. It shows that he has really proven his trust, that they've gotten him on their side, and I like that. I like that Gabriel is actually trustworthy. There's not that whole, oh, can we trust him? Can we not? Does he have ulterior motives? I like that we can trust Gabriel. I think it makes him a better character overall, and it gives us less conflict to worry about. So Rick comments him on the quick thing with the grave. It's since it saved Maggie, and they're in Spencer's house. They can't find anything. Rick then steps on a creaky floorboard. He pulls up the vents cover. He pulls a whiskey bottle out, then reaches deeper, finds 2 guns. Rick then takes the guns outside. His savior is taunting Enid. How'd she get out of the closet? I don't know. Remember, she hid in that closet. We never saw her come out of that closet. That definitely was really weird. I was hoping that we'd get a scene with her where she came out of that closet, but we didn't see that. We know she wrote that note to Carl, which didn't know if she was going to see him again, but he keeps calling her little girl. He's creepily touching her face, then gives her balloons back to her. Carl wants to have the saviors from hurting her, but Rick says they'll be gone soon. So Rick takes Negan the guns, and Negan makes jokes about it. He asks Rick who almost cost Olivia her life. Rick says it doesn't matter, but Negan disagrees. A lot of people are comparing Negan to the Joker, and I definitely would say that, but Negan's a bit more intimidating. The Joker definitely is intimidating. I'm not going to say he's not intimidating, but I wouldn't say that Negan's really a Joker either. It's just someone who doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't look at these people as people. He looks at them as slaves, and that's why he treats them like shit, because he just does not see them as actual people. He sees them as slaves, and everyone needs to be on board or they go back to square one. So the savior vans begin to drive away, and as Negan prepares to lope in the last one, Spencer and Rosita show back up with the motorcycle inside their van. Negan says that Alexandria is a hell of a place, and Negan notices Michonne, and Rick asks him to give him a second. He goes in to talk to to Michonne, knowing that she has weapons. He's still holding Lucille, and he tells Michonne that he was made to hold it. Rick asks for the rifle. He knows what she's doing out in the field, and he said, and he knows that she has the gun. He says that they have to give them up. Someone will die if they don't, and he knows, and he's serious here. Like, he knows that Negan is serious. He will, in fact, kill someone if they don't listen to him, and Rick says he won't lose anyone else. He's gonna give them the gun, asks if she will please let him. Michonne approaches Negan with the deer over her shoulders. Rick tells him that she was hunting and he can have the gun. Now, we don't know if that's actually true. I think that Michonne really was trying to keep the gun for herself because she needs it, and Negan says that's a good thing. Rick asks for Daryl to stay. Negan says it's not happening, but he says maybe Daryl can change his mind. Now, Daryl's silent. At this point, he's not, respecting Negan. He's still calling himself Daryl, and he laughs at Rick, saying at least he tried. Negan says that Rick now has to earn him. When he returns, he better have something interesting for them, or Lucille will kill someone. So Negan asks for Michonne's deer. She drops it, walks away. Dwight takes the bike from Spencer. He thanks Rosita, gives her their hat back. He says that they took all the beds and guns, but he hopes that she has a place to lay her pretty little head. And, basically, they've taken everything. They've taken the beds, they've taken guns, they don't have any place to sleep. So Rosita mentioned that she found his dead friends. Dwight says that Daryl can have the bike back if he just says the word and he drives away. And we know that word is Negan. If he just calls himself Negan, then he can have the bike back. And I've heard a lot of people say that I was wrong about the theory for Dwight, that a lot of people are thinking that Dwight actually is actually not, the most trusting of Negan, that he's actually waiting to get his hands on Negan. And it makes sense, too. I mean, obviously, this is someone who took everything away from Dwight, took the one woman that he really cared about away from him. Dwight is a man who pretty much has lost everything, and he's just pledging his allegiance to Negan, so Negan doesn't at all think that he'll be the one to kill him. And honestly, I kind of have this feeling that Dwight's going to be the one to kill Negan. If anyone's going to kill him, I think it's going to be Dwight, and I think that's going to come throughout the season. That's going to be a huge thing throughout the season, and if that's really where we're building, that's going to be very interesting. I like where we're headed with this overall, and I really am going to keep that theory in account because I think it definitely does make more sense than what I thought, and I'm going to go with what that person said to me. I think Dwight really is waiting to take a shot at Negan. We'll have to see when he does, but I feel like it's only going to be a matter of time before that happens. So Negan then asks Rick if he wants him to leave. He literally makes Rick say thank you before he does, because if Rick said anything else, someone will probably get killed. Negan then responds, don't be ridiculous, and Negan then kills another walker, and Rick thinks about killing him with Lucille. He stops himself, and in his head, what I like about this is that Rick, yes, he has pledged his allegiance to Negan because he's been forced to, but in his head, oh yeah, he wants to kill him. We heard him say in the first episode, I'm gonna kill you. We don't know when, but he's gonna do it, and Negan asks Rick to clean that walker up for next time. Rick still has Lucille, and Negan goes back together. He then taunts Rick for saying thank you. Negan gets in the van, and the Saviors leave, and Daryl looks back at Rick from the van. Rick stares back, and it's just this really great exchange where you see that Daryl really is still on Rick's side. He's just kind of helpless, and he can't really do anything about it. So I thought that was a pretty good way to show that, Daryl really is still on their side right now. It's not that, he is a prisoner of Negan, and I think Daryl's the thing that's really keeping Rick going. Like, Rick knows he has his right-hand man, and I like that, but Rick closes the gate. He walks back inside. Spencer's closing up the van. Rick tells him about the guns. He explains the entire situation, says that they would have killed Olivia, and Spencer challenged him for searching his house, but Rick says he's weak for keeping food and drinks, and Spencer calls after Rick, says he's wrong for what he's done. He then brings up Glenn and Abraham, and Rick threatens him, then he walks away. Again, this to me was very underwritten. It seemed like it was just there to give Spencer something to do. Sophia calls out Spencer for not telling her about the guns. He said, well, not so, Rosita, I mean, he said that he's had them for a while, and he only had them because he doesn't trust Rick. He says that she's right. This doesn't have to be their life. Then he drives away, and Rosita takes the guns from the car's wheel. Well, we don't know why she's taking the guns, but Rick is setting up their blankets for where the bed used to be. Michonne shows up, tells Rick that they could have hid more. Rick asks if she did, but she says no, and before leaving, she says that they have always fought for what they had. Rick says that they have the numbers, and they have to play by Negan's rules in order to get some kind of life. They do in fact have some way of getting at him, but for right now, they have to play by his rules, and I like the way that he explained that. And then we get this really great scene with Rick. Andrew Lincoln really is killing the season, and I really love the way this scene was done. It really shows how far Rick has come. Rick says he had a friend he doesn't talk about, a partner who saved Lori and Carl right as everything started, and of course he's talking about Shane and that him and Lori were together when they thought that he was dead. You know, that's how this whole story started, and he says that he knows Judith isn't his, he loves her as a daughter, but she isn't his, and he says he has to accept that so he could be alive, and he'll die before she does. He wants to raise her, protect her, and teach her to survive. He had to accept Negan's reality in order to protect everyone else and keep them alive, and he asked Michonne to do the same so everyone can stay alive. You know, the only way they're going to do that is if they just stop fighting Negan and just accept it, which obviously isn't really the best thing they could do, but for right now, it really is. There's not really much else they could do. I mean, obviously they could try to kill him, but all that's going to do is get someone else killed. So I like the way that he did get Michonne to, you know, give Michonne that reality check that she needs. Michonne joins Rick, helps him with the bed. She says that she will try, but back in the open field, she approaches the old truck. She sits on the roof, thinks, and she hears something behind her. She turns to look. She gets down. She grabs the duffel bag, walking towards what she heard. A smokestack is in the direction of the noise, and she's on a road. She approaches the steaming pile of mattresses having been burned on the side of the road. So they literally burned every single one of their mattresses. They took their beds to burn them, which is insane to think about. But yeah, they've burned their mattresses. I mean, that is how far Negan is willing to go. The fact that he doesn't even give them beds and their mattresses are gone. Like, they're not getting them back. That he will make sure that they're his to the point where they're cremated. I mean, that was crazy to see. But then we get the ending scene, which this was very interesting. Rosita picks up a bullet from the ground, takes it to Eugene, and asks him to make her a bullet, and that is the way this episode ends. So that was a very interesting ending. I really do love where Rosita's head, but let me just get into this episode and what I thought about it overall. So like I said, this episode was a bit slow. I definitely will say that. I thought the scenes with Rick and Negan really did pop. I thought the standout scenes definitely were there, especially seeing them talking about Lori and Shane, everything, and him basically revealing the truth about Judith, which I don't think he's ever told anyone about. I think Michonne's the first person he's ever told her about, but that, again, that was to get Michonne on Negan's side. Even though that Michonne and Rick are a couple, you know, she needs to get on Negan's side, because that's the only way they're going to be able to somewhat, you know, feel like they can, you know, that somewhat feel like they can have somewhat of a normal life, and I like seeing that overall, and that their days aren't numbered, which I thought overall was, again, very powerful stuff. But I will admit this episode was a bit slow, a bit unnecessarily so. It didn't necessarily need to be nearly as long as it was. I think this episode could have easily been maybe at most, I think, 70 minutes. It did not need to be 80-something minutes. It just was a bit too long for the episode. But Rosita picking up the bullet on the end of the episode kind of makes me think that Rosita's going to try to kill Negan. That's what she's trying to do. She's out for revenge. She's going to do what she can to get revenge on Abraham, and I like the direction that that's headed. That's going to be very interesting. The fact that Negan has burned every single one of their matches is such a cool thing to do, but I don't really know where that's headed, if Michonne's going to let Rick know, but that's going to be very interesting. Spencer's a character that I think really should have just died. I don't really feel like he has a place in the show right now. He seems like he's just there to complain and cause problems, and I really hope he's not Ron. You guys know I hated Ron last season. I was so happy when he died, and I'm hoping that that doesn't happen for Spencer. Spencer and Aaron are the only two original residents of Alexandria, and Aaron never has anything to do, and when Spencer's here, he has the most boring of plots, and this is the perfect example of that. Spencer, just, there's not really much for him to do on the show anymore. I don't really know why he's here. It just seems like he wants to get away from Alexandria, and I'm hoping that either he gets away or he gets killed, because I just don't really think Spencer has a place in the show anymore. That's just my opinion. I don't really feel like he needs to be here, but that's how I feel about it. We'll have to see, though. As far as things go with Daryl, I like the way that Daryl's playing this. He's being silent. He's not saying anything. But I like the way that he is, in fact, on Rick's side still. He's just kind of playing it up for Negan. I like the way that's going. And Dwight, like I said, I think he's waiting to take a strike at Negan. At some point, there is going to be someone to take out Negan. It's going to be Dwight. That's who's going to take him out, but we'll have to see. I think that's going to be very interesting. Overall, I'm really enjoying the season, as you guys know. This was definitely my least favorite episode so far. I definitely will say that. I think there were definitely some scenes that popped really, really well. There were definitely some great scenes in there, but as a whole, this episode was very slow, was kind of unnecessarily slow, and it really did not need to be 90 minutes. If anything, last week's episode needed to be 90 minutes. This episode did not need to be. I don't know why the premiere wasn't. This just felt kind of strange. It was 90 minutes. I don't really know why it was this long. I guess they just wanted to make a 90-minute episode because last year's fourth episode was 90 minutes. So it was a bit strange to see that. But overall, guys, in my review, let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Loved your thoughts on it. Did you like the length of this episode? Did it work for you? And we'll see you guys next week for tonight's episode, Westworld, which, damn, is there a lot to talk about because a lot did happen, and we'll definitely get into that, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.